Why does conversion take so long? The reason that we even ask this question as converts is because Orthodox Jews follow the Torah. With the Torah, there is also an oral Torah, which is compiled within the Talmud. From the Talmud came the Shulchan Aruch, or the codified book of law. All Orthodox Jews follow the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch. In the Shulchan Aruch, there is a section that deals with conversion. And the section that outlines this conversion process for the would-be convert is Yoredeah 268 CF2. To some of your surprise, the conversion process outlined within the Shulchan Aruch is very short. It is either immediately or 30 days. If it's immediately, you are either a woman or a man that has already been circumcised. If it is 30 days, it is because you still need to be circumcised. That circumcision needs to heal for 30 days, and then you can go in the mikveh to complete your conversion. I'm going to give you a brief summary of what is written in Yoredeah 268 CF2. For a more detailed description, you could consult with Rav Google or with the app Safaria, which would give you the whole Yoredeah 268. I am only going to summarize Yoredeah 268 CF2 as this relates to this topic. In Yoredeah 268 CF2 in the Shulchan Aruch, it states, if a convert approaches the rabbi to convert, these three men, which is then the Beit Din, will tell him, why do you come to convert? Don't you know that the Jews have been prosecuted everywhere they go? If this would-be convert were to answer these rabbis and say, I know, and yet I am not worthy to join them, you will accept this convert. You will ask him a couple of questions. He's still not Jewish because he hasn't dipped in the mikveh yet. You will ask him a couple of questions. You will inform him of the lesser mitzvot, the little commandments, and the greater mitzvot, the bigger commandments. You will also tell him about the severe punishments of the Torah. You will tell him, before you become Jewish, if you were to break Shabbat, nothing would happen to you, and you will still have a share in the world to come if you observe the laws of Noah. But after you become Jewish, if you do not keep Shabbat, if you desecrate Shabbat in any way, shape or form, the punishment is severe. You will be cut from the Jewish nation and you will be stoned to death. It says that you should not go at length about the punishment, but you should tell him about the rewards of keeping the mitzvot. So just as you have punishments, you also have a great reward for keeping mitzvot. And you should go at length about this. If this would-be convert is still keen to become Jewish, you walk him into the mikveh. And then you tell him about a few more of the lesser laws and the greater laws. Then, if he still accepts, he dips himself in the mikveh, water totally over, fully covered with water, no clothing. And when he rises, he is an Israelite. It goes on to say that if this convert, which is now an Israelite because he's risen from the mikveh, if he were to then disobey any of the Torah laws, he is still a Jew. A bad Jew, but still a Jew in every sense of the word. Now the question we got to ask ourselves is, if this is written within the Shulchan Aruch, the codified book of law, why then is it not followed today? Why does conversion take anything from 1 year to 3 years, depending on where you're living and the Beit Din you're dealing with? And there is many converts out there where a 3-year conversion is a dream and normally takes much longer for several reasons, which we will discuss in this video. In this video, I will also give you a bit more detail about my conversion. But first, let's cover this 4 reasons that the rabbis would give you, or what I'm giving you, why conversion is no longer immediate or 30 days. Reason number 1. This is by far my least favorite reason, and this is something that the rabbis often told me during my conversion process when I quoted them Yoredeah 268 CF2. And that is that in those times when the Shulchan Aruch was written, when you would convert, you would cut all ties with your family and friends. You will join Israel and you will dwell with Israel, the people of Israel. Thus, the likelihood of you keeping the Torah and the mitzvot was much higher, as you were going to dwell with the people of Israel and become part of the nation. Still today, if you are a convert, you're not just there to keep Torah and mitzvot, but you're also there to integrate with the Jewish people, because they become your people. In these times, however, that is no longer really applied. And that is what the rabbis would tell you, is that because in these times, you do not cut your ties with your family or your friends. Many people still keep their friends and their family. They've got more Jewish friends and they're staying in a Jewish community, but they did not sever all ties. This is another question which we could, a little bit off topic, but it says in the Torah, in the 10 commandments, in the 5th commandment, that you shall honor your father and mother. Long shall be your days. The rabbis teach that you should still give honor to your parents because they are still your physical parents. A convert, after he has converted, is no longer spiritually part of his family, his birth family, because spiritually his father is Abraham and his mother is Sarah. That is why when you take your Jewish name, you will use at the end Ben Abraham, the son of Abraham. But you should still show honor to your parents, unless they tell you to do anything that is against the Torah. Reason number 2. As an Orthodox Jew, when you finish conversion, you become a full Orthodox Jew. Under the state of Israel, there is a law called the law of return, meaning that every Orthodox Jew, no matter where they are from, has the right to return to Israel and become a citizen of Israel. This process is called Aliyah, to go up. And it is a whole process to apply for Aliyah. And there's different ways that it is done. After you have finished conversion, for a 9-month period, you cannot make Aliyah. You can start to prepare the documents and everything else, but only after 9 months you are entitled to make Aliyah under the law of return. But once you have made Aliyah, you will be a citizen of the state of Israel, and you will benefit from all their social structures. We all know that Israel is a great nation. And when you go to any other country and you want to naturalize and become a citizen of that country, you need to spend about 3 to 5 years in that country. And then it's not 100% sure that they would accept you. Where if you were to convert as an Orthodox Jew, let's say you did it in 3 years, it is still less time than to become naturalized through the normal process. This reason made more sense to me. Reason number 3. Many rabbis will tell you that the reason that Shulchan Aruch, Yochadaya 268 CF2, no longer applies is because there has been many converts that has fooled the Beit Din and has then converted. Many of them were Messianics or Christian missionaries that went through the process of conversion only to infiltrate the Jewish community and tell them the fairy tale about Jesus and fool the people to convert to Christianity. And this is something in particular that the rabbis do not want. And they feel that the process itself would eliminate these elements. This reason as well didn't really appeal to me. As they explained, many of these Christian missionaries lasted out through the process and still infiltrated the system. So even if you make it longer, a very dedicated missionary would still suffer those years to get people to believe in the fairy tale of Jesus. So, in my opinion, this is not a very strong reason, and I feel that this is more something just to tell the convert, Yalla baby. The fourth and final reason is the reason that I've discovered only after I've completed conversion. And I think this reason, not often used by the rabbis, is the main reason why there is a process in conversion and why it takes so long. I started my conversion in 2012 in Port Elizabeth in South Africa under the Johannesburg Beit Din. My rabbi at that time was Rabbi Bloch. Now, Rabbi Bloch was a very nice, approachable rabbi. When I met him the first time and told him I want to convert, he was happy that I wanted to convert. He did tell me that there is a lot of laws to keep and it's not for everyone. And I told him, I believe strongly that there's only one God and no other, Shema Israel, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad. And that I believe strongly in the Torah, and that this book could not possibly have been written by a normal human being and it must be divine. For more on this, you can watch my video, Torah and Science and the Purpose of Life, which would leave you with no doubt that the Torah in our hands today could not have been written by a normal human being chilling in the desert 3,400 years ago, and it must be divine. After I've told him all this, that I believe there's only one God and I believe strongly in the Torah, he told me I could join the conversion program and then I should start keeping some of the mitzvot. Now at that time, I come from a Christian background. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I didn't know that I would have to come to shul 3 times a day for Shacharit, Mincha and Maariv. Shacharit, the morning prayer, was instituted by Avraham. The midday prayer, Mincha, was instituted by Yitzchak. The evening prayer, or Maariv, was instituted by Yaakov. And thus all Orthodox Jews go to a minyan. A minyan is where 10 men is, to pray to God. It says where there is 10 men, the Shekhinah of God rests there. The Spirit of God rests there. And thus you have to go and pray every day, every minyan. For converts especially, you are monitored to see if you are coming to shul regularly. You also have to be there every Shabbat. And on Shabbat, they start to tell you about the laws of Shabbat, which is numerous. Also at that time, I knew that I can't eat animals that is not kosher, that is mentioned within the Torah. But I did not know that these animals needed to be shechted in a certain way to be kosher. I thought, if it's a cow, I can eat it, because a cow is kosher. I didn't know that it needs to be slaughtered in a certain way, and they stack the meat with salt so it draws out the blood. I didn't know all these laws. I thought, if the animal is mentioned in the Torah as kosher, I can eat it. I also did not know that you cannot mix meat and milk together. I knew that you couldn't cook meat in milk, because that is stated in the Torah. But in the Torah, this is mentioned 3 times. And from this, the oral law says that you cannot cook it together, you cannot eat it together, and you cannot have it in the same utensils. And that is why in the Orthodox world, the dishes and everything is split between meat and milk. Some people even have pareve. So I didn't know all of this. All I knew is I believe that there is one God, and I believe in His Torah. But I didn't know the oral law, and that's the big part that is missing for converts and people that is not Jewish or do not know a lot about Judaism. Also, my rabbi said that I should wear a kippah, a head covering, which obviously I'm wearing now. But at that time, I felt very self-conscious about wearing a kippah because I didn't know any of these laws. The rabbi told me, if you want to be Jewish, you need to wear a kippah, because that is what Orthodox Jews do. So I wore this kippah, and I could tell you stories. I mean, I was eating at places that was certainly not kosher. I was eating kosher food, but there was no restaurant in PE that had a hechsher. A hechsher is something that the Beit Din gives to a restaurant, which indicates that this restaurant obeys by the laws of kashrut. I didn't know this, so I was eating there with a kippah, big Chilul Hashem. Chilul Hashem is a desecration of God's name. One of the most severe punishments within the Torah is for Chilul Hashem. Luckily at that time, didn't finish conversion yet. Thus, none of the punishments contained within the Torah would apply to me, as I have not yet finished conversion. And that is what I want to get to, is that when you want to become Jewish, you want to become Jewish most likely for religious reasons, because you believe in God, you believe in the Torah. But the reality is you do not yet know what that exactly means. You maybe know the Torah as it is written, but you do not know all the laws that come with it, which can only be found within the oral law. And this is, in my opinion, why conversion takes so long. Another reason related to this is many converts, righteous converts that want to convert for the sake of heaven, for God, they do not really know what would happen. They don't really know all the laws. In my example that I've just explained, I was a year in PE. I went to shul every day. I went to every Shabbat. I tried to keep all the laws as best I can. At that time, I didn't stay close to the synagogue, so I could not be Shomer Shabbat. I also could not afford to buy within the Jewish community, as I was quite young and didn't really have the means to do so. So after a year of learning, of studying, of going to shul every day, of starting to keep mitzvot, I collapsed. Meaning, spiritually collapsed. I felt that this was all too much for me, especially the 3 times a day going to shul, the studying. We did Daf Yomi, which means a page a day in the morning of the Talmud for 2 hours. A lot of time was spent at the shul, and I felt that I had no social life, that everything around me was collapsing, and it was just all too much for me. I then left the conversion program and I went to England, where I worked and I continued to study on my own. I remember telling myself that, this is all, I know that I want to be Jewish, but this is all too much for me. There is just too many laws to keep. I can't remember half the stuff I must do or mustn't do. So I decided this is all too much for me. I'm going to study on my own and get all this information until I think I am ready to actually keep it all, and then I'll come to convert. So eventually I moved back to Cape Town in 2014, and in 2016 I rejoined the conversion program in Cape Town under the Cape Town Beit Din, and finished conversion, Baruch Hashem, at the end of 2017. And that's also what I'm trying to get at in this whole story of my conversion, is often converts start strong. So if we were to convert converts, like the Shulchan Aruch says, in 30 days, I would have probably kept nothing, and I would have many sins to my name. But because the process was long, and I took 6 years, which is very long, I now know most of the laws, and I know how to keep the laws, and I know what to do, what not to do. And thus, the sins that I do commit will be less than if the conversion process was quicker. So, this was a longer video than I actually intended at the start, but I wanted to give you like a full overview of why conversion takes so long in the Orthodox world. Because this is something that I really struggled with when I went through conversion, especially at the end. Because after I did my year in PE and then studied on my own, when I came back, I knew I was already keeping most of it. So I bought in the community, and I was a year and a half in the community, Shomer Shabbat, Shomer Kashrut, a guardian of the Sabbath laws, a guardian of the kosher laws, meaning you keep everything as best you can, obviously. And I felt that I was ready, but still they would not convert me because I wasn't long enough within the community. But luckily, I went to the Beit Din and they questioned me and the whole thing. You can watch that video. It's also on the channel, Conversion Start to Finish, where I explain that a little bit in more detail. They converted me, and Baruch Hashem, I did finish. So for all the converts out there that like me struggled with why is conversion so long, if the Shulchan Aruch states that it's immediate or in 30 days, I hope some of these reasons I've given you some comfort. Hopefully your conversion will not be 6 years, B'ezrat Hashem. Hopefully it will be as quick as possible, and hopefully you will keep all the mitzvot. There's another thing that is stated that says, according to your struggle, that will be your reward. And I hope it will go well with you. I hope that if you're still in the process, that B'ezrat Hashem, you will finish soon. May you all continue to be blessed in your journey. May you continue to be blessed in everything that you do. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom.